Hello class, I am here to give y'all my informative speech, and I do have an audience. I do have someone working the camera as we speak, and I do have somebody sitting there. Ignore the dog, he doesn't know what he's doing. So in our syllabus it discussed that we needed to have our informative speech to be based on a person, place, event, something we're passionate about, etc., etc. So I kind of chose an event and a place. Now, the event that I'm going to talk about, or I'm going to phrase that, the place I'm going to talk about is the Oklahoma City National Memorial. And the reasoning for that memorial is an event that happened on April 19th, 1995, when Timothy McVeigh pulled up in a Ryder truck parked in front of the federal building and detonated over 2,500 pounds of explosives, killing 168 people and changing the lives of the city, state, and for the most part, our country forever. Now today, on that site, sits a 3.5 acre national memorial. It's an affiliated site with the National Park Service, but most of it is controlled by an organization called the Memorial Trust. It's the board of directors. Now there are 8 symbolic meanings or elements to the site. Now we don't have enough time for me to go over all 8, so I chose 4 that would be the most important to me, so I'm hoping that it would be important to you. Prior to the explosion sat a 9-story federal building that housed everything from a Social Security office to a daycare center, ATF, military recruiting, and so on. At 9:02 a.m. when McVeigh detonated the explosion, over a third of the building was completely destroyed. Now, there were over 199 people that were able to walk out of the building alive. 7 kids from America's Daycare actually survived that, but 19 children did die. Now, where you see the building itself sits at that day, now sits something called the Field of Empty Chairs. Now, a field of empty chairs consists of 168 chairs made of glass, bronze, and marble. No chairs are the same, they're all different, just like each individual is a different person. Now, the names are written on the chairs, and at night they're lit up. Now, the chairs themselves have 3 different elements to them. Now, the far eastern side of the chair sits 5 chairs away from the other set. Those 5 chairs represent the people who died outside the building. So there were 16 buildings total that were destroyed during the bombing. Over 350 were damaged. So again, 3 elements to the chairs. The easternmost chairs are for the people who died outside the building. Now the chairs, the other 2 elements, chairs are set in rows. So 9 rows, first row represents the first floor, so on to the 9th row. And the chairs are placed for the victims on what floor they should have been on. So if the victims should have been on the first floor, their chair will be on the first row, and so on back. Now, if you look at the chairs in overhead view, you notice spacing, and chairs kind of bunched together. Well, the chairs are like a puzzle piece, so they take the shape of the building after the explosion. So if you was to look at the chairs, you can see that there would be more chairs placed in this area on the side and less chairs to the sides. Again, it's a puzzle piece. It's supposed to fill in the void left behind by the explosion. Now, in my opinion, those chairs are probably the most important part of the site. Just everything about them. So there's going to be different chairs. You're going to have smaller chairs, and the smaller chairs represent the children. You'll have 3 chairs with 2 names on it because there were 3 women who were pregnant. So the names of the mother and the baby will be placed on that chair. Very emotional part of the site. Now, another element that I will discuss will be the gates of time. So another little visual for you. If you've ever been out to the National Memorial, you got these big, huge bronze gates. And on those gates, you have 2 different times. You have on the eastern end the 9:01 and on the western end the 9:03. Well, the idea between that is the explosion happened at 9:02 a.m. So the gates like to frame that moment. So 9:01 symbolizes our city and nation's last minute of innocence. 9:03 symbolizes the minute after when the healing and grieving began. So when you walk through those gates, you either start from the beginning, but when you're on the grounds themselves, you're actually in the moment of the explosion at 9:02 a.m. Very powerful part of the memorial. Now, we're going to move on to another element of the site that I like to, probably my favorite and the most emotional of it all. It's called the Rescuer's Wall. And the day of the explosion, a bomb team was able to capture this moment and spray paint this on a journal record building. Now, if you was able to really read that, and if not, let me go ahead and read it for you. Team 5, 4/19, 1995. We search for the truth, we seek justice. The courts require it, the victims cry for it, and God demands it. Very emotional and very powerful statement that kind of captured how everybody was feeling on that day. Now, a lot of you in this class were probably old enough to really remember that day. I myself was 13 years old, so some of it was vague, but I do remember this being one of the main things the media talked about. Now, what's interesting about this, after it was written on the wall and they decided to dedicate the memorial, they actually covered that up with protection. So that will never fade and it'll always be there for the rest of eternity until that wall itself is knocked down. Now, they did have to go back. It was originally written in red. So the black you see is actually a protective covering of that. So again, it will always be protected no matter what. Well, so we're going to go into one more element of the site, and probably the most iconic site of the memorial itself will be the survivor tree. Now, this is a 100-year-old elm tree. We have pictures of it dating back into the early 1910s. It's an amazing tree. It's huge. I recommend anybody to go up there to first visit that. Now, this tree represents all the survivors of the actual bombing itself. And what's amazing about this tree, the blast came and pretty much charred this tree. There was nothing left of it. So it was about to be destroyed. The FBI was going to cut it down for evidence. But the day they showed up to cut it down, they saw the tree was starting to sprout new life. So the community, the rescue workers, the survivors rallied around this tree to save it, for it to be a symbol. It's the symbol of life, that life can rebuild much like this tree. So to this day, on the southern edge of this tree, you can still see the charred marks from the actual explosion, but the tree is very lively. It's been inoculated. It's probably the best taken care of tree in this country. It has its own water system under it to keep it going, and it's very well protected. Not only did it survive this explosion, there's not many American elms in this part of the region anymore because the Dutch elm disease wiped out a great number of them. So I hope I was able to inform you all on the 4 most important elements of the site to me. And if you haven't been to the memorial, I highly recommend that you go and enjoy all 8 symbolic elements of the site, not just the 4. Thank you all very much, and I hope you enjoyed the speech.